Dobrý den, já teda kromě toho, že budu běhat s mikrofonem, tak zkusím ještě udělat nějaké intro. Důvod, proč se tady vlastně potkáváme a vlastně to nepadlo, je ten, že zatímco dneska spousta z nás vnímá nahrávání přednášek jako nutné zlo, které nějak musíme splnit a nějak se s tím musíme poradit, tak ve skutečnosti je to, co vlastně bude výsledkem naší práce, jakési nové digitální zlato, které ty univerzity budou schopny následně ať už přímo nebo nepřímo zúročovat v učení těch studentů, protože co jiného než předávání vědění je cílem jaksi toho vzdělávacího procesu na univerzitách. A frontální výuka už není úplně OK a vlastně v okamžiku, kdy vy vystavíte ta videa na internetu, tak si ty studenti můžou brát to vzdělání, moudro, nebo jak tomu budeme říkat, v čase, který je pro ně vhodný. A právě to, jestli budete mít ta videa správně zorganizovaná a zpřístupněná nějakou dobrou formou, může z vaší univerzity udělat v budoucích letech tu vedoucí univerzitu, protože zatímco dneska je to tak, že čím větší univerzita jste a čím jste starší, tak máte jaksi větší šanci sehnat ty mladý studenty, ty talentovaný, tak v budoucnu to bude tak, že když budete mít ta vhodná data, vhodně uložená, vhodně přístupná, tak pak můžete být ten lídr. Dneska se nemusíte omezovat na to, jestli jste na ovocném trhu, anebo jestli jste na břehu nějaké regionální řeky někde ve městě XY. Ten internet nám dneska umožňuje dělat všechno. A Kaltura, respektive ty online videoportály, jsou tím diferenciátorem, který vám umožní dostat se dopředu. Protože asi není potřeba znova procházet demo a klikat všema těma dialogama, tak my jsme si připravili panel je asi příliš silné slovo, ale pozvali jsme dva speakery, jeden z nich je z univerzitního prostředí z Velké Británie, z University of Sheffield, která má zhruba 30 000 studentů, což je na poměry České republiky velká univerzita. A druhý je speaker z Kaltury, který má poměrně velký a dlouhý zkušenosti s implementací projektů na těch univerzitách. Dlouhý znamená plus minus 20 let. So I think I can switch to the English.
Okay, let's see. Yeah. It would be interesting to get your take on that, Graham and John. I'm only joking. So, yes, yeah, I'm very delighted that you both could join. Maybe I'll pass it on straight back to you. And thanks, Michal, for the intro. Maybe do you want to say a few words about yourselves, where you come from, and why you're on the call?
Sure. Shall I start, John?
Please do.
Yeah. Okay. So my name's McElerney. I'm a senior digital learning advisor working in the digital learning team at the University of Sheffield. I've been leading our work with Kaltura for the last 6 years now. I have a role managing part of the digital learning team in Sheffield, responsible for running a platform such as Kaltura and a few other areas as well, which hopefully we will talk about this morning. Over to you, John.
Thank you, Graham. Hello, everybody. Ahoy, everybody. That's my only little bit of Czech that I know. It's a pleasure to be here today. My name is John Cooper-Thwaite. I work with Kaltura, and my role is to work with universities across all of Europe and the Middle East in developing their use of video-based learning and video management. I worked in higher education for over 15 years at a university, probably similar to many of the universities that you work in at the moment. And I introduced technologies like Kaltura over the years. And I've been working with other video-based learning platforms now for over 7 years. So I have some experience of working with universities all over the UK and Europe and the Middle East, as well as partnering with other global teams in Australia and in North America. So hopefully I can share some experiences of that work in this panel meeting today.
Thank you very much, Graham and John. Before we jump into a few questions, if you guys have any questions to Graham or John, feel free to just raise your arm and I'll come round and you can address the question directly to them. Maybe we go back to Graham. Can you maybe introduce quickly the University of Sheffield, your current challenges, and maybe your vision when it comes to digitalization, video? I know you prepared something, so I'll pass it back to you, Graham.
Thanks very much, Felix. Yes, just very quickly, an introduction to the University of Sheffield. We are what we call in England a red brick university, so we're not one of the historic universities like Cambridge or Oxford. We were founded in 1905 in Sheffield city centre, founded by donations of the people of Sheffield who wanted to have a university. Our broad vision as a university is based around education, which is teaching and learning undergraduate and postgraduate students. We have a very large portfolio of research activities, very highly respected in many wide areas: engineering, biomedical research, medicine, to name a few. We're also very firmly committed to broader aspects of innovation. We are working interdisciplinary research to tackle some of our broader global challenges around food and energy security. And we believe very much in the ethos of one university philosophy of inclusivity for all, irrespective of ethnicity, religious belief, sexuality, and so on. One broad community. This is our university homepage right here. And here is very quickly an overview of our vision of who we think we are as an institution, and our key values and the pillars of our activity, as I said: research, innovation, education. I think, like many people, we're all still reeling from the challenges that have been presented by COVID and how we adapted to that, and some of the expectations that the world has around us, including our students. Some of the big challenges for us in the UK. The other thing I would have to mention is the additional challenge of the impact of Brexit in the UK, and that's an economic challenge for us all in the UK. Employability is a big concern for our students and is a big part of our education pillar. And indeed, making sure that we are fully embedding the best of digital technology in our learning and teaching. That would be an overview of where we are at the moment, and we will talk about what Kaltura's role has been in that, perhaps in a moment. I'll hand over to John, perhaps, or back to you.
Thanks, Graham.
So it's, Graham, could could you a little bit follow up on your cooperation with Kaltura? How does it work?
Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. That's an important story, of course. So we became partners, customers of Kaltura around 2017. I'm just going to turn my volume down. I'm getting a slight echo. We use Kaltura to deliver and produce a wide range of video-based content, and I'll talk a little bit more about what our vision for Kaltura was and is in a moment. The largest use of Kaltura at the university is to deliver learning and teaching content, and the vast majority of that is delivered by our Blackboard virtual learning environment or learning management system. I should say up front, in the UK, we tend to call, we use the term virtual learning environment. I know that in the US, for example, the phrase LMS or learning management system is used. I may use the two phrases interchangeably. So much content. We have over 100,000 learning and teaching videos presented to students via Blackboard. But also, we use it for many areas of activity. So we will also use it for marketing. Researchers use it to disseminate research. We use it for internal communications. And the way we access that is using the Kaltura Media Space portal, which we call our Digital Media Hub. Here's a very quick look at it. We've represented our faculties here, so you can go in and you can look at publicly visible videos that have been made by our various different departments. We have excellence in learning and teaching, research, and so on. The main driver, the strategy, when we started with Kaltura, was we wanted to make sure that as an institution, we were able to maximize the use of audiovisual content, really to support all the main activities of the university: learning and teaching, research dissemination, public engagement, marketing and communications, and very importantly, student recruitment as well, although we use other channels for student recruitment as well. And as a key part of that strategy was to empower all our staff to be able to create and publish video content, and that's irrespective of their role within the university.
That's super interesting, Graham. Thanks for touching on the main drivers. Maybe for us it would be great, John, for you as an education expert with many years within the industry, can you identify some of the main drivers from maybe other universities or in the industry itself that drives digitalization, that drives video use? Maybe from your experience, can you quickly elaborate on that?
Yes, thank you, Felix. So very similar to what Graham has described at the University of Sheffield, we see many universities have now been turning to high levels of use of video, and it's video to record in the classroom, and that's been developing and growing over many years. I think also there's been obviously video meetings such as this through the pandemic, but we saw that developing before the pandemic in some aspects, but more so now. We also see, because of the example that Graham showed about the amount of video material that is being created, video management tools that can kind of take all of that different video content and store it in one place, give everybody the appropriate permissions, and allow people to do what they do well with that content, to use it in an informed and empowered way, to then publish it into different parts of their teaching or different parts of their work. There are also different sort of edge cases now of using video that are becoming more mainstream. And I'm sure Graham will talk about these as we move along. But to thinking about virtual reality, about augmented reality, and those facets, which I say edge cases are now becoming sort of almost kind of an expected aspect of a video provision within a university. Another key driver of all of this is around security as well. There's been a lot of discussion in the last 5, 6, 7 years around improving the secure nature of video content as well as other content in a university. So making sure that that is secure so that only the students of the university can access it. But if information is sort of shared elsewhere, that there is clear information stored on that video so that all users see where it has come from, and it will reduce the risk of plagiarism. There are many, many use cases, but those are ones that I just wanted to mention just now.
Thanks, John.
So another question toward Graham. So I expect that there was not all people were in when you started the portal or use Kaltura. Could you tell us how did develop the process of adoption at the university, please?
Certainly. Where we had been with the use of video at Sheffield, in fact, I'm going to just jump on a slide here, was that we had a very long tradition of using video within the university. In fact, Sheffield University had a very well-respected video production team who had won many awards. But I think many, you know, from the 1960s to 2000, it was a very traditional use of video. Video was made by video experts, and you know, a small number of professionals making content for people. And then after the 2000 onwards, with the emergence of things like YouTube, more people, there was an emphasis on people generating content. More people wanted to make content. We were very particularly interested in developing students as producers of content, and we could talk a little bit more about that in a moment. But when we think about where we were in 2017, we had some challenges, and these challenges are important because they helped us to drive adoption forward. By 2017, before we joined Kaltura, we had a number of different systems in use. So there was no interoperability. Some people were putting content into YouTube. We had other content that were being placed in iTunes U. We had a pre-existing video hosting platform using another product that had been unsuitable because people didn't feel they could access it. And really, that enabled us in a way to deliver a new product that answered those problems. And as John said, there had been no easy way for people to find all the content in the university. You had to go to 3 or 4 different places. The other things we really wanted is we wanted all colleagues to be able to publish video. We wanted a full integration with Blackboard. We wanted it to be easy to use. And we wanted to enable students to submit video as part of their work, because this was very important to us. Because Kaltura actually enabled us to do all of these things, we were able to present a narrative to our colleagues that said, you could all access this. Your students will be able to submit content. You can all create content, and we could talk in more detail about the use of Kaltura Capture, which became very important in the pandemic. And this was a great enabling technology. We engaged people by removing all the previous barriers that they had encountered, by making it easy for everyone to engage with video. And the Kaltura platform, a series of products, enabled us to do that very well. That was prior to the pandemic, and then we might come on to talking about that, because that forced things very differently, as you may imagine.
Thanks, Graham. I was just going to ask, I mean, you started in 2017, so it sounds like you were somewhat prepared for what came afterwards, as prepared as a university can be maybe for a global pandemic. But for us, it would also be interesting to find out how the use of video basically developed during the pandemic and especially post-pandemic, because obviously the fear was that, or not the fear, but we were all hoping to go back to kind of like physical education again, but maybe to find out how the virtual side of things is still developing and maybe still growing.
Sure thing. So that's a very good point. Because we had established Kaltura, and we had very good support material for it, and also we had a very well-known web conferencing tool, which is not the Kaltura tool, it's the Blackboard tool. We were in some ways prepared in theory for what was to come next, but what really happened in around March 2020, which is when the UK went into lockdown, is that Kaltura really became a fundamental core of our move to online learning. I don't know what happened in, I think phenomena that many people experienced, and I'm sure colleagues in the Czech Republic had the same experience, that many academic colleagues, when they first went into lockdown, they felt that the way to do this would be to run all their teaching as live webinars. And this became very, very complex very quickly. And basically, it did not work very well. It exposed huge infrastructural issues that we had never encountered before. For example, because people were teaching from home and many students were learning at home, we discovered huge problems with things like network bandwidth and things that really started to become big problems. So we really pushed our colleagues towards making sure that they produced lots of asynchronous content, and this is where Kaltura Capture really came. Really was our backbone of this approach. So because we had successfully worked with Kaltura product engineers in 2019 to make sure that we could get Kaltura Capture and we could distribute it to any member of the university, we then found that this is what everybody wanted to use. So we had a fantastic growth in use. And if I could show you a graph here, I've got a number of these, but I'm just going to show you this one because I think it summarizes the story. So if I can show you here, this is prior to the pandemic. Post Kaltura launch in 2017, 2018, the number of people using it was growing, and I would say we had between 800 and 1,000 videos a month being added to Kaltura. Now, look what happens here. This is where the lockdown in the United Kingdom starts, and immediately we start to get a huge peak in content added. Over the summer, academic colleagues were busily preparing content for the new academic year. In August, we had 22,000 videos added to the system. So that's going from 800 to 22,000. That's a 22,000% increase in usage. And then, as we can see here, around October, November, 15,000 videos added per month. But interestingly, as we came out of the pandemic, which is here, which is a very reassuring story for us, is yes, the amount of content has decreased, but now look, we are having on average between 2,000 and 5,000 videos a month. So we have a post-pandemic residue which shows a much higher engagement with the product. So that is a positive story for us, I think. It's not just about the number of videos. These are some statistics that show the viewing figures. So during lockdown, okay, this was just over a year, our students watched the equivalent of 53 million minutes of video, which is 101 person years. That means one person would have to watch video non-stop for 101 years without sleeping, without eating, without going outside, without going to meet some friends for a beer, just watching the video. And now it's not as much, but we still have a high level of engagement, which we're very pleased with. The other thing I mentioned, very important, and I will stop after this, again, showing the importance of Kaltura capture, making sure that we could distribute this across our university community to all people. And if you have a look here, you can see the importance of this in that 69% of all our content on average now is produced via that tool. 30% is uploaded, i.e. produced using other tools. I'll stop there because I realize I've talked for quite a long time.
Thanks, Graham. Impressive numbers.
So I have a question for John. Till now we were discussing stuff about the teacher side. So what about the student side? So I believe that if you have a complex systems, users are easily get lost. But if the media is correctly managed, it creates a better opportunity or better chance to get a more upwards learning curve.
Yeah, that's correct, Michal. And one of the features that perhaps you've already seen is that through Blackboard, any student who's registered to a course will see their own media gallery, which is a collection of all of the videos that is available for them to view for their course or a module within their program. And this obviously helps the teaching members of staff to be able to capture material, upload material, record material, and then just share it in the right place to their students. And that obviously helps with the secure aspect, but also the convenience of being able to find that material. And that material is also, that content is also available through the mobile app of Kaltura as well. So if they want to learn on the go, they can do. What Kaltura can also do is embed any video asset or a learning activity into the Blackboard learning space. So we can embed material into a page within Blackboard or into an assignment or into a discussion. And therefore the teaching member of staff can have the video as a kind of a learning tool or as a contextual item to support anything else that they're doing with their teaching. So they have the option of having this gallery of material, a collection of material, or the video embedded where they want it for students to be able to access at their leisure.
Thanks, John. As I know Graham has a hard cut at past, and I'd like to give the opportunity to you all, basically, to ask questions if you have any, and you would like to address them to Graham.
I can go a little bit longer now, Felix. I've done some more organisation. That's not such a massive problem now.
That is fantastic. Thanks. However, do you guys have any questions so far you would like Graham and the Uni of Sheffield to elaborate on? Are there any questions so far you'd like to ask? And don't shout them all at once. Yeah.
Thank you. If I understood well, there's a normal that teacher and students communicate via videos and they make a feedback for all the students or each one by one, or how? Can you describe it more for me, please?
Yes, I can. This is not something that every single... Oh, let me just stop this, sorry. Some of our lecturers have very much taken on the idea of using audio and video feedback to their lecturer, to students' work. In Sheffield University, much of student work is submitted electronically via Blackboard, because all staff can record and produce videos and insert them into Blackboard courses. This also means that it's possible to produce a piece of video and give that as the feedback on a student's piece of work. And so the example that I have in front of you here, it's not actually in Blackboard because I've taken it out so we don't have to go into the confidential area, which is the students' feedback. This is an example from journalism. Journalism teach people video production. They specifically teach, in this case, how to edit video with Adobe Premiere. And so what the video tutor does is he actually takes the student's video project file, and rather than trying to explain to them in words how they could improve the edit, he goes actually right into their project. He goes through it bit by bit. He's able to drill down and provide very rich feedback on their work. We've also found this with people teaching architecture, where they're able to go and look at students' computer-aided design projects, but also basically also on people's written work as well. So I wouldn't say that every lecturer in the university does it, but we have quite a lot of people doing it. And we know that in terms of student feedback, students find this very valuable. They really appreciate the depth and quality of the feedback they get there.
Thanks, Graham. I hope that answered the question.
Is that okay?
Thank you. And is the editing environment included into Kaltura or not? Yes, yes. Super.
There is a.
Just to clarify that point, the video editor that we saw on the screen is Adobe Premiere, but there is an editing solution in the Kaltura platform. And we also integrate with external editing solutions.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Great, thanks. Any other questions? I'll come up, 1 second.
Hi, I just wanted to ask, you were talking about that your university had some history with the video production and video distribution, but honestly not all universities are like that. Do you have, that might actually be a question for both of you, do you have some tips how to persuade or like butter the professors into using those services more?
Graham, do you want to go first, then I'll go?
Yeah, absolutely. I certainly can. That's a very good point. One of the interesting things I think about the pandemic was that people simply no longer had the choice. They had to be able to do something. That doesn't mean everything that everybody did was the best quality. But I've just shown for you on the screen now, I think Felix has got it on the display, which is we have a number of resources that we make available to help our staff and students. We have a small team actually who are able to support people to develop skills. We also have on our media space, we have a wide gallery of resources which are open to the public, I should point out. So you are actually able to access this material. It deals with a wide range of media production facilities. But you're absolutely right. Producing complex video is quite a skill, and I think staff do require some support in doing so. I think it's understanding the difference between the value. There's a huge power in video of just recording some quite simple and effective video to engage your students. It doesn't all have to be a very complex, multi-camera edited video. And what we have found time and time again is that simple communication messages to students can be very helpful. Even just going on and recording like a YouTube-like camera presentation where I tell the students what they will be working on this week or what the key learning outcomes will be for the week. And those sorts of messages can be communicated very easily and very effectively with video.
Thanks, Graham. John, maybe the same question addressed to you from your experience. Do you have some tips and tricks how to nudge the professors? I know we all like to be, or we tend to be set in our ways and are restricted to new tech. But maybe you have some tips and tricks on how to encourage teaching staff to use video.
Yeah, thank you, Felix. And like I said at the start, I worked in university for many years, kind of in a similar role to Graham's, supporting staff with the use of technologies. And my take was always to kind of not to sort of say, hey, this is a great example, go and do something yourself, but to find kind of ways to sit with them. If they want to create something that's really special, find specialists that can support them. But at the same time, I think like Graham, I used to encourage people to find more authentic ways of using video. I used to create Future Learn MOOCs as myself, and we took a more kind of realist approach and just had academic staff recording themselves. And it was far cheaper, far better in the end than a highly polished video. So I think it's very important to kind of understand what the needs are and recognize that students don't expect highly polished videos. They want something that just has a clear message and they can access that video in a convenient way. So I think don't try to sort of do too much. And with Kaltura, you have different tools just to record yourself at your desktop or at your screen if you want to do that, and that can save a lot of time. Graham, did you want to say something?
I was. When you said students, I wanted to pick up on another thing, which is harness the power of student creativity. We've spent a lot of effort in encouraging people to get students to produce video content as a different form of assignment. Harnessing the power of creativity as a learning experience is very powerful. It also means that students are capable of producing fantastic work, and also they understand perhaps the best way to communicate with people of their peers. So one way to think about this is to get students to produce videos. You could, for example, irrespective of any topic that one taught, you could say to students, okay, what are the difficult topics in this course? For this assessment, for this part of the term, I want you to work in groups of 5 and go out and produce a 5-minute video that explains a particular concept, for example. So you can actually harness the power of their work. And again, as John said, using Kaltura, because we can get the students to then submit that content into the virtual learning environment and effectively into the Kaltura ecosystem more broadly, we could then repurpose that content and use that as teaching materials as well. So there's another sort of creative way to think about it.
Great points. Thank you. Any other questions? Otherwise, we have a few more prepared, but maybe you got some more, or all addressed so far? I'll take.
Can I add one sentence about the last?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, I'm Christian, working with EditShare. Just wanted to point out, to convince your professors or to convince conventional workflows to be more effectively working with video, I think we should always get back to look at what the young generation that is coming nowadays is actually working with. They're used to express themselves in TikTok, Snapchat, YouTube. So maybe in the next couple of years we see more students coming that are capable of expressing themselves in video better than with pen and paper. So I think even the most conservative professor would actually be willing to accept this.
Absolutely, very, very, very good point.
Great, thank you for that. So you touched on quite interesting topics, new topics, TikTok, etc. Do you guys see any other trends such as virtual reality, augmented reality within education? Is that something that you guys think will definitely come into EDU or is already? Maybe you can give us some insights here.
Sure thing. This is actually a subject which is very close to my own heart because this is something I've worked in extensively. I'm just going to try and see if I can get into this. Yes, I think immersive technologies, again, they receive an awful lot of media attention, not always positive, but we know that these technologies are becoming more and more accessible, more and more easy for people to create, and they have huge potential power for learning and teaching. So what I've actually showed you here is a new project I'm working on with a company called Wonder VR, who are strategic partners with Kaltura. And this is something which enables us to create 360 media interactive experiences for our students. I'm just going to launch this and show you what it looks like. So, yes, these absolutely are new areas that have a huge amount to offer. And as the technology becomes more mature and it becomes easier for us to deploy these and show academic colleagues how to use these, I think we will see a greater use of these technologies coming forward. Again, the key points being that we are able to produce something that is effective and educationally meaningful, that is not also too complicated to set up. This is an example of a stone circle in the Lake District where I went on my Easter holidays, and I took a 360 camera, a domestic 360 camera. I spent 10 minutes taking 3 pictures. I went into our 360 platform and was able to pull together a quick virtual field trip. If I was going to this field trip with my students, perhaps over next Easter, I could actually give them this as an experience so that when they come to the field trip, they've already had an opportunity to get them some exposure to the environment, to enable them to have a richer and more meaningful experience, because they've already been briefed about what the field experience looks like, and that's very important for teaching. And we can apply that principle to all sorts of settings, you know, operating theatres in hospitals, factory environments, and so on. And there's me. Okay.
Thanks, Graham. John, do you see those trends with other universities as well? Just quickly.
Absolutely, yeah. No, there's so many different sort of ways that people are asking for video now, and simply through mobile phones, we've got so many different apps that use video creatively. What we do at Kaltura is find opportunities to to pull that all into the same space, so that staff can easily sort of integrate it into their own repositories, and they can edit it, but also they can then share them in a secure way, in different ways with students, and add the contextual information. So, it has to be educationally meaningful and useful. Video is great and powerful in lots of ways, but obviously from an educational side, it has to be, the right thing at the right time. So I love the examples of Graham, and I think we see a lot of that now being more sort of readily included. I think people recognise the simplicity of video and how powerful it is for students, and it shouldn't replace visits to wonderful parts of the UK like the Lake District, but it can supplement and inform students so they can get more from it when they're there. I used to work in health, and that was exactly what it was. It was about just-in-time learning, maybe before you go onto a ward or into surgery as a trainee doctor, and just getting the most from the learning material at your fingertips.
Thanks, John. And now you mentioned the magic word secure already. I know, Michal, you've got a couple of questions around security, accessibility, etc.
Yeah, one of the differentiators in between public portals and private ones is integrated security. So, Graham, I'm expecting that you have you have Kaltura Media Space somehow interconnected with your LMS authentication system or university LMS. So could you say how it's integrated, if you are aware about it?
Absolutely. Let me just go back to the video portal to start with. So at this moment in time, you can see I'm actually here as a guest. That means I am just viewing content that anyone around the world can view. In order for me to move out of the guest zone into more permissions-based access, I would log in, and this is integrated with our university's single sign-on environment. And now Kaltura knows it's me, Graham McElerney, and I have access to my media. It's just loading. I'm on my home broadband, by the way, so just a little bit slow. Here we go. And this is a fully permissions-based environment. So I'm looking at my content here. I have the ability to share content with other colleagues, all securely based within our authentication system. You mentioned, we mentioned, I'm just going to pop this here, Blackboard. So now what I've done is I've just actually logged into our Blackboard environment, and I've gone into one of my courses, test course. So again, this is just a sandbox course. So this is all now held within a secure environment. So content I want to have securely within Blackboard, I can control that security. And if I wanted to add a Kaltura item, for example, here, I would be able just to go into the Blackboard environment, and I can access all my Kaltura media within Blackboard. So I have effectively a seamless link between the Kaltura media space environment, the Blackboard environment, and also in this case now the Wonder VR environment, because all my video assets in Wonder are also stored within Blackboard. Within Kaltura media space. So effectively, Kaltura media space acts as a central coordinating tool for all my media. And we could also talk about accessibility in a moment, but we have deployed accessibility features as well within Kaltura. Here are, in fact, the 360 images that we were looking at on the virtual field trip. So I don't know if does that answer the question?
May I have ask John? I believe that if someone wants to add rights to watch something based on the course, there should be a kind of groups, so pre-arranged somewhere else, and users as a content generators can assign those groups.
Yes, so we use an LTI integration between Blackboard and Kaltura. And so when a student clicks on a link in Blackboard, it will then enroll them onto the relevant course within Kaltura. So there are sort of dynamic ways that enrollment can work, as well as kind of other ways that that enrollment could be pre-configured before the course starts. One other thing to say as well in terms of security is that for some there is a concern about having all of their content stored within the European Union. And we hear that more and more now. So we do have a European Union cloud, a SaaS-based cloud, so that Kaltura content can remain within that secure cloud, that regional cloud, if an institution in the Czech Republic wished it to be. So we have certain kind of ways that we can kind of further secure content if that is important to the institution or is a requirement within the country.
So I believe that in some very special cases it is possible to encrypt those videos by DRM, or
I think that might be a question for Paul in the audience, but I'm fairly sure we can.
So just to close off the discussion around security in the LMS, Kaltura inherits entitlements and permissions from the LMS itself, so either via LTI or, in the case of the Moodle demonstration I presented this morning, via the Moodle plugin. So whatever entitlements a student or a teacher has within the LMS context is inherited by Kaltura. So that remains completely under the control of the LMS. In terms of securing content, yes, we do support DRM. DRM, by its nature, is very expensive. So if you're a Netflix, you don't mind if you're paying ½ a cent every time one of your users views a video, because you're probably charging them, you know, I don't know, 300 crowns a month or something for the service. But we do provide a host of other mechanisms for securing the content. So as I showed this morning, you can lock the content down to particular domains, IP addresses. You can create access control profiles that prevent users that you don't want to have access to the content being able to consume it. So yes, we have DRM, probably not suitable for educational institutions, but there are many other mechanisms for protecting the content. And just one final point, when content is hosted on the Kaltura platform, everything is encrypted at rest. So where it's stored in our platform, in databases and file systems, it's encrypted using AES 256. And similarly in transit, so when you're transmitting it over the internet, it's encrypted using TLS. So we've been audited by multiple banks. We recently sold a solution to the German army. We managed to convince them we had a secure platform. So I think you can be confident that it is secure.
Okay, thanks, Paul.
Thanks. So I know there's a very exciting next point on the agenda, which is lunch. Are there any last questions for Graham and John before we give them a lunch break as well? Any questions? Or all good? If not, if there are any questions coming up in the next few hours, feel free to hit me up. I'm still here for the rest of the day, or address them to Graham and John after the event. Graham, John, thank you very much for joining us from home. Hopefully next time in Prague yourself. Well, thank you very much.
Like that.
Thank you very much for being invited. I hope you have a great, enjoy the rest of the event. And yes, if people have got questions they want to ask, and they can, you can get them our contact details, Felix, or send them through to us afterwards, and we'll be happy to help you in as much as we can. So all the best, and thanks again for inviting us today.
Thank you all. Have a great day. It's been a pleasure talking to you.
Thank you.